What's going on, everybody? LK here. What goes around comes around. We started with what I missed about old fighting games, what I like about new fighting games, started positive. Then I had to let you know what I don't like about modern fighting games. So to round this out, today I want to talk about what I definitely do not miss slash do not like about older fighting games. So to start, honestly, half of these are going to be about like just how fighting games just were in general in the past. A couple of these are going to be actually about how the game's played. But one, it definitely has to be netcode. So we do have wonderful fighting games. I mean, hey, by the way, this is not a fighting game. But we have like Exerd, Dragon Ball. All these games originally did not have rollback. They had delay-based netcode. As you know, a lot of people don't like it. If you don't know what it is specifically, it's the further away you are, the more input delay they add to the game, which can make it very hard to play people, depending on your connection, outside of your state, outside of your region, outside of your country. It can be very difficult. When they tested this in their home location, obviously it works really well because everyone's close to each other, but it doesn't really take into account like the entire world. So I'm lucky enough to live in a region where I can not only play on offline if I want to, but I can play online if I want to. But not everyone has that luxury, so that's definitely like a big X for me. Two is about like how do you input in some games. So once you get to around like Street Fighter 4 era, a lot of fighting games started adding like input shortcuts. BlazBlue has famously the advanced input, which is when you hold the button for 5 frames, it will repeat your input for 5 frames. Before that though, a lot of games, if they even did have any type of input buffer, it was either like way too big or really small. In Exert's case, when it came out, it also had like just only a 1 frame buffer, really small buffer, and then they opened it up to a whopping 3 frames, huge 3 frames. So if you are from a newer fighting game, you play Exert, it might feel a little bit clunky, but just because of how tight the inputs have to be. But in a game like ACR, this game has no buffer at all, so it could be pretty difficult to input things. So I have Eno here because I was practicing like an advanced Eno combo for a challenge, and I was actually having problems just doing this. So I'm actually supposed to IAD there. So I have my typical IAD input. It's a little cursed, because I did play Melty Blood, so I have a kind of cursed IAD input. But that has literally worked in every single game that I've played except this one because I can't buffer the IAD. So to actually get it, I have to do an even more cursed input. It works for me. Don't do it that way. It just works for me. That's how I'd be doing it. But the buffers can make things difficult to input. And it's the reason why a lot of tricks to input things involve pressing the button multiple times. So if you've heard me play matches and you can hear my stick, there are multiple times where you hear me press multiple buttons, but then you'll hear just one attack come out. It's literally a habit from just playing certain games that have kind of tight or no input buffer, so I could just have the chance for the move to come out. So that's something I definitely do not miss. So the next point has been something they have been definitely weakening over time. But every now and again, you'll see it come up in a modern fighting game. So for a little perspective, let's take this type of situation with Milia. So this is a quick little poke into throw into H-Disc. So this is her Exert H-Disc, which is 2 hits, but if she blocks, it goes away. So if we continue to use Exert Milia as an example, she does have this. So this is a combo into Secret Garden setup, and the thing is, it neither goes away on block, nor does it go away on hit. So I hit her and it stays. In newer games, either you need to have used a resource for the thing to stay out. In Strive, there are specific moves that just stay out now as opposed to before, like Milia's H-Disc in Strive is a good example. Or maybe the move takes some setup, like Secret Garden here, like you need to do it. Like, you need to have a specific setup to go into it, so it could be as advantageous as possible, or else people can get out, whatever. But in older games, it's just way more common for a move or projectile or something to just be out, and then you hit the other character, and the thing is out anyway. Item throw characters are an especially strong example of this. Next is actually getting the games late. So we are definitely living in a great time. I remember Dragon Ball FighterZ where everyone got the game at the same time. I remember Xbox players getting the game like a couple of weeks late, but besides that, like it was released in every region at the same time. Sometimes when I use older games like Exert, for example, people are like, why is your game in Japanese? Do you know Japanese? Do I know Japanese? I know some. I'm not great at it. But that's not why I have the game in Japanese. It used to be that the order that things would release would be arcades would be first by a significant margin of like 6 months plus, because arcades that was like their main source of revenue, right? Then the console version would come out, but they would always release the console version in Japan first, and then eventually we would get the game. So in the case of Revelator, we actually got the console version, I want to say like 3 months after Rev came out in arcades, and then the English version came out about a month after that. So like, let's say the international version came out like a month after that. From the perspective of like a tournament player, you basically had to be willing to get the Japanese version of the game in order to get the game as soon as possible. For games like Persona 4 Arena, we got pretty lucky and we got the game kind of quick in the US, like in North America, but Europe did not get the game for months and months and months. Some games like BlazBlue, I distinctly remember periods like in BBCS1, so I was lucky enough to have an arcade, so I played it in arcades for months, like 6 months or so. Then the game finally came out on console. We got the Japanese version in like June or something, and then it was another 3 months until North America had a release. So by then, like, just the gap between players was so massive. And in the case of games like Melty Blood, basically their version of Melty Blood you just can't get, for lack of a better word. So one thing that was really nice in the past, like right now we talk about console versus PC, but when Axis Again came out on console, people were like, oh, finally the game is playable, and it's not like annoying for people to get the game. Where current code, you basically have to get the 7 Seas version because you just could not get a physical copy of the game. The game coming out on Steam was a symbolic dub. There's no other way to put it, but a symbolic dub. So I'm just really happy now that you could just, like, when a game comes out, it's just out, like, everywhere, which is really nice. So the last point is definitely something I feel if you go back slightly more, sometimes I watch old fighting games and plus I think about like just versions I played. I feel like fighting games change a lot with SF4 onwards, where I feel like in old games, like sometimes stuff just like doesn't work, where I feel like in modern games, they try really hard to have things to work. And I think combos are a really good example. So you just saw here, Slayer got a legendary hit, it's Power Bunker, it's a big hit, right? Wall bounces mid-screen, but he doesn't really get any money for it. As someone who, again, I'm not like an ACR expert, but we usually think of Slayer as having really good combos, good conversion ability into knockdown, and Anji just kind of like flips out. He has to use super to have a chance to extend or knock down or whatever. One thing about the watch along I did with Kizzy was for this version, there are just like some characters where like things work, and then there's some characters where like things just don't work. Like Millia, for example, in this version, if she throws you, you just tech in the air in front of her, which is something you would never expect for that character in like any version. So it's really like some characters just like really just have the juice compared to other characters. Of course, this one definitely depends on the game and how it's made, but I just sort of feel like it's a mildly consistent thing overall. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel. Overall, I think fighting games are in a good spot. I was actually maybe like around 2018 kind of worried about the genre, but overall I think we're going in a good way. There's good and bad things about basically any game, which is why I decided to do both things I like and things I don't like for both like older fighting games and more modern fighting games. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.